The sun had just begun to melt into the clouds when Flight 908 lifted off from Dubai International Airport, carrying 524 passengers toward London. The cabin atmosphere was peaceful, families settling in, business travelers reviewing documents, children pressing their faces against the windows. In the middle of the long, wide aircraft, in seat 14C, sat a quiet woman named Maya Rahman. Maya was the kind of person nobody noticed. Dark hair tied back, simple clothes, no jewelry except a silver ring. She sat with her book open, avoiding conversations, happy to stay invisible. Nobody knew that this woman, this silent passenger, once trained as a military pilot almost a decade ago. Life had taken her away from the cockpit after a personal tragedy, and she had promised herself never to fly a plane again. But fate had other plans. 2 hours into the flight, turbulence began to shake the cabin. At first it was minor, just enough to make drinks tremble in their cups, but then the second jolt came, harder, sharper, making the overhead bins rattle. Passengers exchanged nervous looks, but the captain's calm voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've hit a rough patch. Please keep your seatbelts fastened." The plane continued forward, humming through the heavy clouds. But inside the cockpit, something was terribly wrong. Captain Lewis, a veteran with 30 years of experience, suddenly felt dizzy. First, he blinked rapidly, thinking it was fatigue. But the dizziness grew, then blurred his vision. "Are you okay, Captain?" asked First Officer Turner, leaning forward. Lewis nodded weakly but didn't speak. A moment later his eyes rolled back and his body slumped sideways. Turner grabbed him in shock. "Captain! Captain!" he shouted. But before he could call for help, Turner felt the same strange wave of dizziness rush over him. His heartbeat raced, his breaths became shallow, and he collapsed over the control panel. Both pilots were completely unconscious. With no hands on the controls, the plane dipped forward. The autopilot disengaged with a harsh alarm. The aircraft suddenly lost altitude, falling hundreds of feet in seconds. Back in the cabin, everyone felt it. Drinks spilled. A child screamed. The oxygen mask shook violently. Maya snapped her head up. She knew that drop. She had felt it once during a training flight years ago. Her pulse quickened. "This isn't normal turbulence," she murmured. The flight attendants rushed down the aisle, trying to calm passengers, but their own faces were pale. They tried calling the cockpit again and again. No answer. Then the loudspeaker crackled, and a trembling voice spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need immediate assistance. If anyone on board has flight experience, any at all, please identify yourself." A wave of panic swept the cabin. People whispered, prayed, cried. Everyone looked around helplessly, hoping a miracle pilot was secretly on board. Maya's hands trembled. She didn't want to get involved. She didn't want to relive the past. But the alarm she heard through the partial open cockpit door told her exactly what was happening. The plane was in a controlled fall, and soon it wouldn't be controlled at all. She closed her eyes for a moment. She could feel her heart pounding in her throat. "Not again," she whispered. "Not after everything." But then she heard a little girl crying behind her. "Mama, are we going to die?" Something inside Maya broke. She inhaled sharply and stood up. A flight attendant rushed toward her. "Ma'am, sit down, please." Maya shook her head. "I can fly. I used to be military trained. I need to get to the cockpit." The attendant stared at her in disbelief for a second, then quickly nodded and cleared the path. Passengers watched as this quiet, ordinary-looking woman walked toward the cockpit with steady steps, like someone who had done this all her life. When she stepped inside, the sight hit her like a punch. Both pilots were unconscious. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Altitude alarms screamed. The plane was nosediving slowly, dangerously. Maya didn't panic. Training took over. She moved the captain's slumped body enough to reach the controls. She pulled the yoke toward her, steady but firm. The aircraft resisted at first, heavy and unbalanced. But she kept pulling, using every ounce of strength. The plane's nose lifted slightly. The violent shaking reduced. The altimeter stabilized. The drop stopped. She managed to hold the jet level, but it was still in danger. The co-pilot's headset hung from his chair. Maya grabbed it and placed it on her head. "This is Flight 908, she said, voice uneven. "Both pilots are down. Passenger at the controls. Request immediate assistance." The air traffic controller froze for a moment. "Say again. Who is flying the aircraft?" Maya swallowed hard. "This is passenger Maya Raman, seat 14C. I'm trying to keep us steady." Her hands tightened around the controls as she felt the plane wobble. The controller responded quickly. "Okay, Maya, stay calm. We're here with you. Help is on the way." Maya breathed deeply. She had taken control, but could she land a giant aircraft with 524 lives depending on her? The answer would unfold in part 2. Inside the cockpit of Flight 908, Maya Raman gripped the controls with both hands. She had managed to stop the deadly dive, but the plane was far from safe. Warning lights still blinked across the panel, oxygen levels in the cockpit were low, and the unconscious pilots remained slumped beside her. But she couldn't think about any of that now. 524 people were depending on her. The radio crackled again. "Maya, this is London Air Traffic Control. We're patching you through to an emergency flight instructor. He'll guide you step by step." A calm voice replaced the controllers. "Maya, this is Instructor Collins. I need you to tell me your experience level." She tried to steady her breathing. "Former military trainee. I flew small fighter trainers, never a commercial jet." "Understood," Collins replied. "But you've already stabilized the aircraft. That's excellent work. Now we're going to bring you home." Home. The word hit her hard. The cockpit smelled like metal and burning plastic, but for a moment she felt her old life rushing back. Days in uniform, skies filled with sunlight, her father watching proudly as she trained. She pushed those thoughts aside. This wasn't training. This was survival. A flight attendant burst into the cockpit. "Ma'am, people are panicking. Should we make an announcement?" Maya nodded. "Tell them the aircraft is stable, and tell them I will do everything I can to get them home safely." The attendant nodded and ran back. Maya took a deep breath and pressed the radio. "Okay, Collins, what next?" "First, check your altitude and speed." She scanned the instruments. Her fingers shook, but she forced herself to focus. Altitude 19,000, speed holding at 310 knots. "Good," Collins said. "Now turn slightly left to heading 260. We're guiding you toward Heathrow." Maya gently turned the yoke. The massive aircraft responded slowly, like a sleeping giant being pushed awake. She felt the vibration in her arms. Her shoulder ached. Sweat trickled down her forehead. But she didn't stop. As Flight 908 approached controlled airspace, a new voice came onto the radio, firm, authoritative. "Maya, this is Squadron Leader Harris. Look outside your left window." She turned her head. 2 RAF fighter jets appeared beside her, gliding smoothly at her altitude. Their sleek bodies shimmered in the sunlight. "We're here to guide you," Harris said. "Just stay steady and follow our lead." For the first time since entering the cockpit, Maya felt a spark of hope. Down in the cabin, passengers felt the plane smoothing out. Parents comforted their children. Elderly travelers whispered prayers. A few curious passengers peeked down the aisle, trying to see the woman flying their plane. In seat 14C, Maya's abandoned book lay open, its pages fluttering with every vibration. Back in the cockpit, Colin's voice continued calmly. "Maya, we're beginning descent soon. I need you to lower your altitude gradually, not too fast." Maya adjusted the controls. The plane tilted gently downward. But then a loud alarm blared. "Warning, Engine 2 overheating." Maya's heart jumped. "Collins, Engine 2 is failing." "Stay calm," he replied. "Cut power to Engine 2 and redistribute thrust to Engine 1. Her hands moved quickly across the panel. For a moment the plane wobbled violently, prompting screams from the cabin, but she corrected it, pulling the jet back into balance. The fighter pilot's voice returned. 14C, you're doing incredible. Keep following us." Minutes felt like hours. Finally, through the clouds, Maya saw it. The London runway, long, wide, waiting. Her breath hitched. "Collins, I see the runway." "Good. Now listen carefully. This landing won't be perfect. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be safe." Maya nodded, though no one could see her. "Lower landing gear," Collins instructed. She flipped the switch. A heavy thud echoed beneath the aircraft as the wheels deployed. "Bring speed down, gently, gently." The runway rushed toward her like a giant mouth, ready to swallow the plane. Passengers gripped their armrests. Some cried. Some held hands. Some whispered Maya's name, even though they had never met her. Maya pulled the nose slightly up. Boom! The wheels hit the runway, hard. The plane bounced once, twice, then finally gripped the asphalt. She hit the brakes, praying they wouldn't fail. The aircraft screeched down the runway, metal groaning, wind howling around them. And then, silence. The plane stopped. For a moment, nobody moved. The world seemed frozen. Then the cabin erupted with screams, cheers, sobs, an explosion of relief. Maya sat there, breathing heavily, her hands still gripping the controls. She didn't celebrate. She didn't even smile. She just closed her eyes and let the tears roll down. The flight attendants rushed in. "You did it. You saved everyone." Medical teams arrived and carried the unconscious pilots out. Paramedics checked Maya, but she insisted on walking to the cabin. When she appeared, passengers began clapping. Then the claps grew louder, spreading through the entire aircraft until it felt like thunder rolling through the cabin. People reached for her hands, thanking her, blessing her, crying in front of her. A little girl ran forward and hugged her legs. "You saved us," she whispered. Maya knelt and hugged her back. "I just did what anyone would do," she said softly. But everyone knew the truth. It had taken courage, skill, strength, and a woman who never wanted to fly again had flown into history. Flight 908 would forever remember the quiet woman in seat 14C who saved 524 lives.